Hello, IL Texas families. The purpose of this video is to provide you a quick overview of our trilingual program. The mission of IL Texas is to prepare students for exceptional leadership roles in the international community by emphasizing servant leadership, mastering the English, Spanish, and Mandarin Chinese languages, and strengthening the mind, the body, and the character. So the trilingual program is at the heart of our program. In sum, our elementary students are enrolled in a two-way dual language Spanish-English program. So they learn content through language, language through content, Spanish-English. So again, this is K-5. And they learn the Chinese through the FLES program. FLES stands for Foreign Languages in the Elementary School. Starting in kindergarten, our kids begin receiving Chinese instruction through a 6-day rotation. Through the specials rotation and the 6-day rotation, 4 of those days are days where they would receive Chinese for 45 minutes each of those days. One is art, the other is music. Then beginning at the middle school level, Chinese and Spanish is both taught through our LOTE program. LOTE stands for Languages Languages Other Than English. And it's essentially the foreign language learning model. In the middle school, kids receive 45 minutes of Spanish every day and 45 minutes of English every day. And then at the high school, for every semester that students are enrolled at IL Texas, they will take and have a Spanish class, as well as a Chinese class, and of course, an English class. So in sum, 100% of the students at IL Texas are language learners. We are all learning new words in English every day, academic words in English, as well as CL, Chinese learners, SL, Spanish learners. Again, all of our students are, 100% of our students are language learners. So our demographics may vary from campus to campus, but the model remains the same. The guiding principles for dual language education essentially provides the framework through which our trilingual program is built. You will see in this PowerPoint the guiding principles referenced. ACTFL is another one of our partners. ACTFL stands for the American Council of Teachers of Foreign Languages, and we have adopted their 12-level proficiency guidelines to help us monitor and track students' proficiency in Chinese as well as in Spanish. So here's the pyramid. Most of the kids, when they first start at IL Texas, are at a level 0. Then they quickly jump to that novice low. However, it is important to note that research has proven that it takes about 5 to 7 years to learn a second language. So it will take them longer to advance through these levels. There are a lot of factors that influence how quickly kids will advance through languages, certainly personality and interest, as well as exposure. So we do encourage our students to seek out that exposure to Chinese and Spanish languages through music, by watching movies that are available in Chinese or available in Spanish with captions at the bottom. So those are some ways that we could increase that exposure. We also want our kids monitoring, self-monitoring their proficiency levels. This is just a visual that we are sharing with all of our students that summarizes the different levels so that they can reflect on where they are and what it takes to get to that next level. At the middle school and high school, you will notice that unlike a traditional school where you may see Spanish 1, 2, 3, 4 or Chinese 1, 2, 3, 4, at IL Texas, all of our courses are proficiency based. So it's either at the middle school, Spanish for novice A, B, intermediate A, B, advanced A, B, etc. And then when they work up to the high school, it will follow the same pattern, except for we have more options at the high school level. So this is essentially their trajectory, their course trajectory. However, it is important to note that one course is not a prerequisite for the others. So if a kid is in the novice A class and that next year is ready for that intermediate A class, they can skip that novice B course. Let's go back to talk about our dual language program. In fact, the rest of these slides are going to be focused on our dual language program. First of all, dual language, again, is for our kinder through 5th grade students, through which they receive Spanish, English, as well as the curriculum, the content. Dual language programs are increasing in popularity. What this slide shows is where you can see kind of a visual interpretation of that growth and popularity, and we're certainly seeing a growing number across the Dallas-Fort Worth Metroplex, the Houston and College Station areas as well. Our model is grounded in research. Very important to note that we did not make up this model. We cannot take credit for our dual language model. It is certainly grounded in research. It's actually over 50 years of research. This one in particular, this one research study is one of my favorites. The authors are Thomas and Collier, Doctors Thomas and Collier. We actually had them visit Isle, Texas last month. What's fascinating about their research is that it was first published in 1994, and originally they had tracked 47,000 students, and when they published it in 1994. And what they showed back then is that English ELLs, English learners in a dual language program, always did just as good, if not better, than students that were taught in English only. But when you got to the middle school and high school levels, they outperformed their peers. So as you can see, students in a dual language program outperform their peers, especially in the long run. What's fascinating about their research is that was 1994. Well, now it is 2018, and they now have tracked over 8 million kids. They're no longer only looking at English learners. Now with the sample size as big as 8 million students, they're able to take and pull different subgroups. And in every case, it doesn't matter which ethnicity or what demographics type, kids in dual language programs do just as good, if not better, than kids that are taught in an English only program. And that applies again to every subpopulation. So here's one of the graphics that they showed us here. It's specifically looking at African American students in dual language program compared to African American students not in a dual language program. Again, here's the red. Kids taught in 2 languages, content in 2 languages, are doing a lot better than students who are taught in English only. All means all, so it benefits all kids. We know that kids in a dual language program can do just as good, if not better, especially when they get to those secondary levels, because of the research behind the brain research behind learning a second language. Kids who are learning in 2 languages, there are many, many benefits to being bilingual. They can connect better with others, they can put words into categories better, etc. But what we learned this past month with Thomas and Collier is that at the root of why kids can do just as good, and in most cases better, is that that in a dual language program, kids are being taught in a language they don't understand. So that's forcing them to develop that, it's forcing the cognitive development. It's forcing them to make inferences and pick up on cues to help them learn the content. So we do ask our teachers to stick to that target language, to not go back and forth between English and Spanish, because when they do stick to that target language, that's when the magic happens. That's when we see the cognitive development. Okay, so essentially the more Spanish, the better. Sometimes that's counterintuitive because you think, well, the kid's going to be tested in English. Shouldn't they be taught, isn't more English better? No, according to research, the more Spanish, the better. The more Spanish, the better they will do on English tests. And again, the reason why is that cognitive development. This is very important for our teachers and to know and to really stick to that target language, and for all of us to support our kids as they're learning a second language, whether it's the language that we speak in the hallway, in the cafeteria, during morning announcements, etc. Okay, our model's target. This is what we share often with parents. This is our target: 45% Spanish, 45% English, and 10% Mandarin Chinese. Again, this is a target, but we are not there yet. This is what we're working towards. So we're having conversations of how we can increase our percentages. It's also important to note that all of our teachers are paired or partnered. For every English dual language teacher, there is a Spanish dual language teacher. So your child will have at least 2 teachers, their English and their Spanish teacher. 50% of their time they will be in English, and the other 50% they will be with their Spanish dual language teacher. The teachers work very closely together. They plan lessons together. Their lessons mirror each other. Very important to note that they do not translate. So if lesson 1 is in English, lesson 2 is in Spanish, lesson 3 English, lesson 4 Spanish. It's always a continuation of the previous day's lesson, never a repetition. Hats off to our dual language teachers because, again, 100% of our kids are language learners. So it doesn't matter if you're an English teacher, it's high probability that you will have an English learner. If you are a Spanish dual language teacher, the percentages are even higher of our Spanish language learners. So they have to work very hard to teach the content in a way that is comprehensible. And they do this by using visuals and scaffolds and gestures and total physical response, etc. A quick overview of their schedule. Kinder and first grade students are on an A-day, B-day rotation. So every other day they alternate between their English and their Spanish teacher. Second through 5th grade are on an A-week, B-week rotation. So if math is in Spanish this week, next week, math will be in English with my English partner teacher. In 4th and 5th grade, we are departmentalized. So again, they will have partner teachers, English and Spanish, except for they will have their English and Spanish math teachers, their English and Spanish science social studies, and then English and Spanish reading language arts teachers. So K1, A-day, B-day. I will be sharing this PowerPoint, so you're welcome to read through it. I will not go through every slide, but the information is there. It just provides a little bit greater detail on what we mean by A-day, B-day rotation and A-week, B-week in 2nd through 5th. We do have a modified dual language program at some of our campuses. In Garland, Arlington, and Keller, you will see that kinder through 5th grade, they are in a fully implemented program. So all of their instruction, 50% of the time will be in English, the other 50% in Spanish. Again, learning transfers across languages, so it's never a repetition. And then, however, where we see the M's, these are campuses that have a modified dual language program. So for example, Orem and College Station, this is year 1 for them. K1 is fully implemented 50-50 program, but beginning in 2nd through 5th grade, well, what we mean by modified is that when they are with the Spanish dual language teacher, that teacher is not teaching 100% in Spanish. Every lesson of every day is in Spanish, but he or she does also use English. As an example, the preview of the lesson may be in English, the lesson itself is in Spanish, then the review is in English. Now, non-academic language should always be in that target language. the language of the hallways, the language that the teacher's using in the cafeteria. We do ask our teachers and our administrators and our coaches and our special teachers that do speak Spanish to make sure they're utilizing that language in the hallways and non-academic times. Okay, lastly, just wanted to share with you a few other ways that we are supporting our language learners. As much as possible, we try to translate everything in English, Spanish, and Mandarin Chinese. Here's an example of our character traits in all 3 languages. Hats off to our performance coaches. When they're doing exercises, they'll do the repetitions in Chinese or they'll do them in Spanish. Our pledge in 3 languages. The labels outside of classrooms are in 3 languages. We also participate in the National Spelling Bee. We will have a Chinese bee. And so that ultimately, again, demographics may change, but we all follow the same model, and we're all working towards being global citizens, promoting global understanding, and teaching and helping our kids in their path towards proficiency in 3 languages. Thank you very much.